do all that. I just have to actually, takes a minute for it to go live. All right. Yep. Mike, you're all good.
Here from the members. I don't know if their mics are on. And then we're also waiting for Kim. She's has to be let in, I guess.
Admit. Admit.
Yeah. Thank you.
Before we begin, I'll just see if the public have any questions on the agenda that they'd like to address so far. No, okay, great. Item number 1, presentation from Amy's Kitchen. Michael, it's all yours.
Hold on. Kim was going to start presenting the slides, so I'm
It says
That's
she's
my-
joining.
okay. Kim, they're ready to hear from Amy's Kitchen. If you're able to hear us, can you start presenting the slides?
I think the host has to let me screen share. Let's see.
Sure.
Yeah, cool. I don't use Zoom very often, so just bear with me for a second here. Okay. All right, can you see my screen?
No. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
It says I'm screen sharing. Do you see anything?
I think I'm just gonna.
Reason it's got YouTube. It's kind of
I think I'm just.
infinite mirror image. Sorry about this.
Yeah, they keep pinning something.
Let me stop. Let me try it again here. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Okay, let's try this.
Like minimize YouTube. And go to Zoom screen. I'm sharing screen.
How about now? Can you see the slide deck?
We cannot see the slide deck. It looks like a home screen for the town hall.
And that's not ours. Yeah, I gave them to everybody.
Let me see here.
If I lose, then I lose them.
So I stopped sharing.
You do, you can find it. That computer is there. Not sharing.
No, but I don't know how she clicks it on her end to share the screen.
You want me to try one more time?
What's wrong?
Let's try.
That's what we've done. Yeah, if we stop sharing and whoever's on the other side, make co-host, that's an option as well to allow them to.
All right, I'll hit stop share.
Yeah, because there you go.
Hey.
You drove down from the.
The assist is appreciated.
Far enough. It was above average.
So Kim, I don't know if you can put it in presentation mode or if we're just going to view it in this manner.
How's that?
We're just still seeing the slide deck, not the screen show. You might have to share the screen that has the full slide. There you go. Perfect. So to the town, and I believe this is the town board supervisor. I'm not quite sure who else is in the meeting, but we certainly appreciate the time to provide a progress update with regards to the Amy's Kitchen Goshen project. Kim, if you can go to the next slide. Thanks, Joe, for introducing us. I'm Mike Chang. I'm the senior project manager with the engineering team for Amy's Kitchen, based here in California, but have been out to the site numerous times. I've been charged to construct this facility for Amy's to produce meals at Goshen, New York. I'm going to turn off my camera because of the low bandwidth here, and I just it might be a little bit better. I don't want to lose you guys, so I'm just going to turn off my camera. Also speaking, and I think we've switched it up, Kim is going to take on, so I'll go over the progress of the project, and then Kim will take on the project changes and next steps for us. Next slide. Okay, so the progress update. So Amy's is committed to this project. I hope that everybody understands that. We're committed to constructing this plant in Goshen. We've spent over $33 million on site improvements and development thus far. We'll go into some of those details in the following slides, especially if you're not familiar with the progress. To name a few, we've got the water and sewer line from the project site to the city of Middletown. We've installed and completed the full signaled intersection at 17M and what's now called River Road, or even Training Center Lane. We've constructed the bridge over the Wallkill River, and like you see in the picture, we've constructed the front office building. So some of those improvements are certainly quite visible, while others are not so evident. So if we go to the next slide, Kim. Like I said, we've invested to date over $33 million. Prior to the infrastructure improvements, we've completed extensive excavation and grading on the site to have a pad ready for building construction. Parking lots and roads are ready for paving, and of course to deal with any stormwater release to the river. We have a extensive stormwater control and retainment system. If you are able to visit the site, you will cross a bridge that cost Amy's $2.25 million. That's crossing the Wallkill River to gain access to the site. All of our traffic will be going over that bridge, and by town, not code, but directive, Hartley Road is limited for us to emergency access only, or for emergency personnel access. So you'll also see a building there, like we talked about, which represents the front office, that has cost us $8.52 million. This will be the main entry point for all employees and visitors. And it will also offer the break and welfare services for those employees. Not as evident is the power internet services, although a little bit less cost in the grand scheme of things. But what is fairly extensive is the $6 million spent to run from the project site to the city of Middletown wastewater treatment plant. We've spent $6 million there for a piping system to bring potable water to the project site from the city, and a force main to the city of Middletown to transfer industrial and sanitary wastewater to their wastewater treatment plant. So as you use the Heritage Trail, you're walking over our underground water and sewer lines. And like the trail, we've crossed 3 waterways and go under I-84 amongst other obstacles that we encountered. Next slide, Kim. Did it go to the next slide? It's coming. There we go. Also part of that 33 million, we've invested, like we talked about earlier, the full signaled intersection. This included the realignment of the training center lane with River Road for full use of that full signaled intersection. As if many of you have traversed that road, it was a dangerous left turn, right turn, if you will. And now that it's full signaled, I think that's probably alleviated a lot of that. And we've also, as part of that project, we had to repave a section of 17M near the Healy Ford dealership. So that's been completed. But as part of the intersection, because we share a property line with the Mid-Hudson Psych Center, we also constructed at the cost of $50,000 a spur road that gives them access to that intersection so they can safely enter and exit onto 17M. So those are things that you can certainly see as being completed as part of that, our investment thus far. Kim, if you go to the next slide. And activities that are still taking place. We've gone through and had numerous changes to our product lines or products that we've wanted to build at the facility. Currently, with the existing product line that we're looking at, we're right in the middle of design of the building envelope and interior. So there's a lot of progress or a lot of activity that's taking place in terms of the design. We have weekly meetings with our design builders who in fact are New York design. It's a design build firm, Hayner Hoyt, that we're using. And these are 3D models that we're working off of on a day-to-day basis to finalize the design and finalize the cost. So this is just a view of the building from the south to the north. This will include 2 production lines, as well as as we call it, the kitchens that help supply the ingredients to those assembly lines. The other 2 views, Kim, if you'll go to the next slide, just some other views from west to east, same thing, but you can see they've gone into a lot of detail in terms of the structural steel for the roof and column set. I know that we're currently working on the MEP system for the utilities. Next view, I think, is another 3D model, but east to west. So there's been a lot of activity that's taken place, not only from an infrastructure and physical construction on the site, but we're right in the middle of engineering so that we can start doing some procurement and construction of this facility. Okay. Kim, I think you've got project changes unless Paul's going to. You're on mute, Kim.
Okay, yes.
There you go.
Any questions before I start? I talk about project changes and next steps?
Frank on this? You put Frank on this too? You put Frank on this? Frank? Exactly.
Review, they were talking about 820 employees. Very little automation.
Mary, I can't hear the
Yeah.
question.
Can you hear me now?
That's much better. Sorry.
Back 10 or 12 years ago, when Ames came, they were talking about 820 employees based on the ideas of what they were going to make here. And there was not very much automation. And they were working with Orange Ulster, Bosis, and others about perhaps using some special needs employees. Now, when I see this, it looks like we went for automated to make soup that would be meals. Do you have any idea how many employees will be involved if you need to hire them?
I guess this is Paul. I can jump in, and it might be best to hold the question, and we'll go through these couple of quick slides, and then we'll make sure we answer it. But I think in short order, we should have really clear answers on number of employees and role of employees by the springtime. We're kind of in the process of modeling that out. But you're absolutely correct. We are using more automation, which is pretty typical for most food companies today than we had originally intended with this project. I don't believe it will change the actual economic value of those jobs, but we potentially will be hiring more, engineers, for example, folks who know how to run automated equipment, and that might come at the expense of some of the manufacturing jobs. But again, we're very early in assessing the full roll-up of these changes, and we'd really like to come back and give you clear answers to that question. But thank you for that. I hope I got the spirit of the question right.
My information is 10 or 12 years old.
It's really hard to hear you guys and your questions. Yeah. We have just a couple more slides to cover, and then maybe we can open up to Q&A. And just to introduce myself, I'm Kim Barrier. I sit on the executive team. I'm the Chief Information Officer. I've had the engineering team report to me over the last year as we've been looking for a new supply chain leader, which we have just recently hired. So a little bit of of having engineering working for me, but I've been very close to the project over the last year. And we are committed to coming to Goshen and building a plant there. We've just had a little bit of some challenges with the pandemic and inflation. It's just delayed our timing. I think we would have liked to be started a lot sooner. We have had, as we put together the construction budget for Goshen, the price of steel has just, gone through the roof. And it's, we're just really, we've had to do some value engineering to really take a look at what we build there in Goshen based on our customer demands and the changes that we've seen through the pandemic about how people are actually consuming our products. So we've gone through a couple different iterations of what products we are going to make there, but I think we're on a good path now of figuring that out. We've also had challenges with transportation logistics. We've seen those costs double, throughout the supply chain, and just, really making sure that we're careful in how we design those parts there in Goshen, how we use that facility more efficiently. But we are well into the process of redesigning the project. We have a new general arrangement that we put in place. We've hired Hayner Hoyt to be our design build firm, and they've been in earnest working with us. You'll see a timeline on the next slide over the last few months to really help us with our design of that facility. And we are continuing along with doing the rework of The site, we've also been continue to work on all the civil engineering utility installations that David highlighted for you earlier. So where we're at with next steps, we are doing this process redesign. We anticipate having it done in this quarter, Q1, Q2. We would like to come out in the spring. Andy himself would like to come out and give a progress update in the April spring timeframe. We do anticipate, having construction going there in the Q3, Q4 timeframe of this year. So definitely committed to getting going on this project as we need it for our business. So with that, I'll open it up to questions that you might have.
This is Doug again. Mr. Verhaeghe was going to buy the warehouse back years ago. Is he still involved in that?
I think the question's about the warehouse. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Back then, he was going to build it, I guess, and lease it or operate it or whatever. Just didn't know what it's all about.
Michael, I think sorry, for some reason I'm having a very hard time hearing, but I believe was the question about the Verhaeghe warehouse. Did I get that correctly? And our intent to still work together on that?
That is the question from Doug Bloomfield, correct?
Yes, Doug. That is still the current thinking. I don't know, Michael, if you have like exact status off the top of my head. I know when we were back out in Goshen late summer, we had met with the team from over there and continue to talk about how to bring it to life. It is obviously building that warehouse is valuable to us when we have the production facility up and running. So certainly our timing challenges, which I think you're all aware have been real and true, are affecting the timing in which that deal for building that warehouse could come live. But it is still our intention.
Okay, the first question I had was, are you building anywhere else in the United States or elsewhere, or remodeling any other factories like you have done, please, in Idaho?
I can jump in. We're not actively building any new production facilities anywhere else in the U.S. Actually, if anything, which you may have read in the news, we had to make the very challenging decision to actually close a smaller satellite facility recently. Goshen really is our next production facility in our capacity plan. Volumes and demands have changed coming out of the pandemic. I don't think there's any other way to describe it, but that's the reality. So, we are not working on anything active as far as another production facility. There is always work going on in other plants to kind of upgrade machinery and equipment, but I would put that more in the realm of maintenance of existing capacity, not creating new capacity.
Second thing was, you talked about need, and I guess there's going to be a change in the production line of what is going to be produced here in Goshen. And I'm sure that's a work in progress. But from what we were talking about, like production lines with pizzas and stuff like that, what do you see now? In general, what do you see as changes in the production because of the different need?
I think the question was, what production lines are we designing for? Well, I think first of all, we are designing the building eventually to house soup and entrees of various sorts. Which products we take live first are still part of this analysis. We are seeing the impact now of a bunch of price increases that we had to take last year due to inflation, and some of that's kind of affecting certain product categories over others. And one of the questions, I'll be completely candid, what we're focusing on now is the order in which we bring those lines live, not necessarily which lines eventually we'll build in Goshen. It's more of a sequencing thing at this point. And we're building, kind of two plans that we're planning to make a trigger on one of them. One would be to start with soup and then bring in the entrees, and the other would be to start with entrees and go over to soup. Kim also mentioned something that we're studying is the quite rapid change in logistics costs. And with higher logistics costs, certain product categories make more financial sense to open in Goshen than others, just given that it's saving that transcontinental shipment. So that's also factoring in. But really in April, that's what we want to come back is give you details on the exact product lines, the number of employees, and really give you robust, fully thought out and accurate answers to those questions. But again, the broad long scope really isn't that different outside of potentially using a little more automation than originally intended. It's more of a question of sequencing that we're working on right now.
And, I'm not totally up to speed, but I do hear in the community, it appears that science of the soul is progressing more quickly than Amy's. Do you have any input as far as what has been built with Science of the Soul? What is being built now as compared to what you guys are doing? Because the thrust of this whole thing from day one was that was a kind of an auxiliary thing to Amy's. Amy was the primary manufacturing business. But right at this particular stage, it appears that Science of the Soul is ahead of you and doing more types of things. So I'd like an update on what's happening with Science of the Soul.
Yeah, I totally appreciate the question and understand some of the history between them. I will just say that none of us here on this call from the Amy side are involved in the Science of the Soul project, so I feel like it wouldn't be our place to speak of their status. I think we could certainly follow up with some contacts we have on the Science of the Soul side and see if we could get some of those questions answered. I just don't want to speak out of turn, given that's not, we're all here on the Amy side and we're really close to the details of the Amy's project.
Yeah, they're two independent projects. They have their own engineering team, as do we.
I understand that completely, but essentially what I think the
I'm sorry, it's hard to hear. Sorry about that.
my question is just in a general statement, and I could be wrong. It appears that Science of the Soul was moving ahead and potentially kind of built out before even Amy does much at all, and that was not the intent at all. It was the intent was that Amy's up and running, and then Science of the Soul possibly close behind. But it appears that that is not the case now. However, I understand, you can say so, independent engineers and all other kind of stuff like that. But what you could do for us is filter back to those folks and let them give us an update on what's happening with Science of the Soul.
Okay, I completely understand the spirit of the question, and I think it would be best for us to sort of take that one back and coordinate with the team of Science of the Soul and come back and answer. I think again, it just, given none of us work with that group actively, we're aware of the linkages and of course some of the history that you alluded to, but I don't think we're in this team here today is in the best place to speak exactly to that. So why don't we take that as a next step and commit to some follow-up conversation about that topic. But I just, again, don't want to have any of us speak kind of out of turn on something we're not actively involved in.
This is Neil speaking from, perhaps I can fill in as much as I know after we're done with things.
I'm sorry. I don't know what it is about the Zoom connection. If that was a question, I'm putting my ear to the speaker, but I couldn't quite make it out.
No, sorry. Still can't hear anyone. I don't know if I was on the board when this project originally came to town. And I see that we're talking about change of design. I'm not sure if you're even looking at change of markets, etc. But part of the incentive for us, we thought it was a great project and still do, by the way, was number one, as a labor force that you would be taking in, and providing jobs. Well, we've already covered that. Has anything done? I know your firm deals, I think, exclusively with organic products. Am I correct in that?
We are, yes, we make organic frozen meals, pizzas, and soups. We have a very small little restaurant business, but that's kind of out of scope of this project. But that is what we do, and that is the core of our business.
So you know Goshen is a huge farming community, and at that particular point, we had asked if you were going to be buying products from our local farmers, which is an important issue. At that particular time, I understood that it would take a couple of years for the farmers to go organic. Have you made any progress with our local farmers on purchasing some of the items that you would need locally? Or I'll just
Yeah, I mean, given that a lot of the fresh supply chain is difficult to transport across the country and use in our existing plants, it's hard for us to purchase sizable quantities from the region until we have the facility there. But we've certainly been very active in the community. A number of years ago, we put together kind of a listening session with local farmers, and a lot of great ideas and some trials came out of that. We've recently worked with, I think it's called OFNY. I'd have to get our head of sourcing, Tim Griffin, had come out, and we'd actually had won a federal grant to work on some of the supply chain development infrastructure that would be needed. I don't think that's fully gotten to a place where it needs to yet. Just to kind of as a little bit of background to our supply chain needs, for us, it's hard to take products right off a farm into our plant. We don't like soil in the plant, for example. So we tend to take product off a farm, bring it to a local like a processor who will clean, cut, dice, and then we will bring it from there in. That's an area that we've been very active to try to identify the needs and gaps in that particular area. So we've had focus there. But I understand the frustration too. I mean, part of this commitment was to grow and expand and provide a new customer for organic farming in the region. And we want to do it. We will do it when we have the plant available for those ingredients. But again, it's very difficult to take fresh produce across the country and make that work until we have the plant local. So completely understand. Certainly in April, we could probably provide a more robust update and maybe even include our head of sourcing, who's been leading that work in that update, to give you more details of some of the specifics.
All right, I know initially you were going to set up a program to train some of our farmers or encourage them to grow organically so that we would be able to get farming benefit out of this climate. I hope that still follows through. That was 2 years ago. So I certainly hope to see it through.
Absolutely. I mean, I think working with and committing to work with local farmers is something we've done around all of our other plants. And again, it is dependent on the product mix we choose, because not all raw materials go into all products. So again, having the product mix established for the startup then again gives us more confidence in some of the sourcing activities. But yes, we certainly, nothing has changed in terms of the commitment. Again, it's a matter of timing more than anything.
I think as far as, for instance, onions, we're the largest producer of onions in the United States, and we ship all over the rest of the United States. So I think that it would be a real missed opportunity, but we were under the impression that we're going to do this, so I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you. I only have one question. If we go in terms of the estimated design that we have here, and construction does begin in Q3, Q4, how long do you think it's going to take for completion of construction and operation of the facility?
Maybe Michael, you could talk a bit to that. Maybe even also, maybe share both the timing and the actual budget that could be associated with that.
Again, that's something that we're working with our building designers on. We're expecting the cost of this building sometime in potentially mid-February. We've just recently had a meeting with them to also discuss what limitations or issues they might have in terms of construction, especially with lead time of equipment. We know that there's issues with electrical switch gear and transformers at this point in time. So we're trying to understand that to better align the construction timing. Of course, we can still start the building and have the electrical equipment ordered and waiting for it to be received on site for installation. But we're still defining that timeline with the building designers at this point. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Be producing food, am I saying that accurately?
Yeah, that's great, thank you. One other thing, I know when you guys were here last time, you talked about going to a soup line, the equipment was going to be purchased out of Italy. Do you have any idea on lead times for equipment coming out of Europe? You know, a lot of delays over there in shipping and manufacturing.
That's a very good question. For soup line equipment and including the retort, which actually the cooking occurs within these chambers continuously. We were originally looking at upwards of 16 weeks or 16 months lead time. I think that's come down to around the 14, 12-month time frame, but again, we need to find out where we're at with that as well with the suppliers. We actually have a meeting with one of the suppliers for filling of the cans sometime next week. They've actually approached us today about scheduling something to find out where we're at with the project as well.
But I think the good news is supply chains are improving in terms of timeline. And certainly, thus far, I don't think there's, a critical path that we're not aware of that could really get in the way from an equipment point of view, but we're certainly monitoring it closely, as Michael mentioned, and certainly the sequence in which we start up products also has bearing on that.
Correct.
Wonderful, thank you, appreciate the update. Anybody else have anything? Neil, you want to talk a little bit about Science of the Soul? I know you went to a meeting for us.
Yeah, Science of the Soul, in this process of during this period of time, Science of the Soul did start they did a maintenance building first, then they built a single family house, and they started a second single family house at this point. Those are for the caretaker of the property. And then they also started when the big thing that everybody sees right now is the big pavilion where they're going to having their meeting. So that did start, and they come back to the planning board at least once during this time period to say, hey, can we start this before it starts? Because what really happens is they will have some people, they are professionals going and steel, but they have their own volunteers finishing off. So they work much slower than a construction crew will. The intention always was at that point for them to be finishing by the same time as they would be finishing. That timing may be off some, but at this point in time, the requirement from the planning board and the resolution is that Amy's Kitchen is supposed to be open, running before they're allowed to use that center. So that is still on the table. It's still the way the resolution reads. That's still the expectation unless they come back and modify it in the future. I know the Science of the Soul had some problems. They went to India to get their steel, and at the time it seemed like it was a good answer until the pandemic hit everything else. And all of a sudden, shipping went astronomical. They had containers of steel come over, and of course, doubled or tripled just for shipping alone. So I know they're not going to do that again. I know that these stations totally looking to do everything in the United States for supplies. Also, point problems as far as having inspections done on the steel, modern shipping, and also
Thanks. Anybody else? So what else?
They around this, let's talk the pavilion. The pavilion is actually one big building that is 200,000 square feet, and there's
4 buildings around, 4 smaller buildings of 2,000 square feet roughly, that are all restaurants. Then there's one other, building there that's going to be, I don't want to call it a stage because it's not a show, but it's that kind of, somewhat of a Michigan building. There are also 2 other proposed buildings, always have been there. One is going to be strictly administration, and the other building would be, family care from the, big event. So when they have what might be ultimately 10,000 people there, there will be a number of children who do not go into the building, and they are taken care of at this family care program. No, at this point in time, the last thing that started was the pavilion. Last time I was there, the bathroom board is done, and the pavilion's not, I think maybe has to move on, but it's not completely all. There's still a lot of work to be done. On the maintenance building, they had that erected, and it took them a very long time to sheetrock it. The people that they have doing the work, not sheetrockers, sometimes the people there doing sheetrocking are doctors, lawyers, whatever. So it's just their members. They are not construction people, so it does take a lot more time for them than it would for normal construction. That's not my fault, obviously. Everyone gave him some leeway. Only my fault either, that's the way I feel. I can understand. I had a person, every reputable person in this community. Did you know that there's so many sides to the soldier, they couldn't get the other company? And certainly, Amy's Kitchen is certainly aware of the fact that there's a concern on the community's part about Amy's never coming. Hence the reason that Joe asked me to get in touch with Amy's, so they can make a presentation today, to talk to this board, and also the reason why Amy's planning on being here in March or April, to make a presentation in person, and it doesn't, this board and also the community. Well, no, I think it's very good. Yeah. Well, most of us would not want to wait for $33 million. Yeah, I agree.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for the update. Michael, Paul, Kim, thank you for the update. We look forward to the April update and the progress of the project, and look forward to welcoming Amy's to Goshen. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so
for
much.
giving us this time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I do have one question for you. When Andy was here, he was talking, now this is not super, this was when they would make noodles or pieces and other things. He said it takes almost 6 months sometimes to get the product the same flavor as it is from other things in other parts of the nation.
Yeah.
With soup, is that gonna be a problem?
Yeah, so that qualification time frame is still.
Yeah. I don't know. Enough.
Go live, that's when we think we'll have sales of product up the board. That is up hard.
If I see you today, are you out there from time to time?
I think I heard your question, Doug. And I'm not quite sure if I heard Anant's answer quite well enough, but we have built some time into the qualification, commissioning of equipment and qualification of those products. The last thing we want is to have a soup that tastes different out of the Goshen facility versus a can of soup coming out of our Pocatello or our Medford facility. They do need to certainly match so that customers are receiving and they can't really tell what plant it's coming from. But we do go through an extensive qualification process. Andy gets definitely involved in tasting these soups or really any other product that we produce. And until he's satisfied with, that flavor profile, that will not be released to the public, but we have built in about 6 months of qualification in this schedule.
Well, that's basically what the said.
Okay.
Again, thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Item 2. View and approve a special permit for New Leaf Energy, AKA Owenburg Solar. Floor is yours.
Yeah. I'll go to YouTube. Nope. Him to help now? Can you throw something at her? Yeah, just quick.
I have not been.
No one does
My name is Michael Booth, project manager with, Craig Manning. We walked over the project, this particular project about a month and a half ago because of, we had some help with it, so.
You have a card, I'm sorry.
I do. Not in my wallet, so I'm gonna have to. Okay.
Part of the same firm, or you were different, totally different firm?
Totally different firm. Yep, totally different firm. We're out of Albany, New York. We have a satellite office in Ossining. I'm out of Albany, New York. So I drove down to I believe the previous one was a smaller firm out of also the Albany area. Would be Dominic Rico. Familiar with him? I've never officially met him, but kind of a smaller shop. But, we've been retained by what is known as New Leaf Energy now, formerly Borrego, and have advanced the Owens Road project and then the Broadview Vivian project. Attempting to procure appropriate approvals and permits. And then we have Alec.
Al Glad from the law firm, Cuddy and Fader. We were similarly brought on around the same time as Craig Manning. So we've been processing this application. Sure, as you know, we received the site plan approval from the planning board in December on the site. So that's why we're here for you tonight, to hopefully wrap up with the special permit.
Well, all right, so everybody's got the draft of the special permit resolution. This slide I can start with, if there's any questions or comments regarding. I know Sean's got some commentary on that figure. I'll start with the board, and any questions regarding the conditions or.
When we had the public hearings, there were citizen concerns about the property line making 2 megawatt of.
Yeah.
2.5 megawatt, right, and I guess is that, I'm gonna ask that question to Sean.
Well,
The planning board, where are they at on all that?
On December 20th, the planning board issued conditional subdivision and site plan approval. So right now, and one of their conditions is to get a special permit from this board.
Doug, if I can maybe add to that, one of the concerns with the variances was the setback, whether that would abut that neighbor's property, because it needs to bring a setback, so the lot line, the internal lot line, the setback is all of that, so that variance was approved by the DPA.
Okay.
So that was, I wouldn't call it confusion, I'm not gonna put words in the citizens' mouth, but that, then when clarity came to the ZBA, that's when it.
Okay.
So all variances are approved?
Yeah.
And the planning board's got conditional approval?
Yes, the planning board would not have been able to issue conditional approval without variance in place. That's why the applicant's been jockeying around between boards.
Okay. Is it large conditional, a lot of condition?
Out of here,
Maybe the Lord of those will be able to comment on what's taking.
Well, while I was doing that, the ZBA's conditions were tied to the planning board and site plan approval and the like, so they're linked together, and so will the town board.
They're on deal now.
Right, but the condition, the majority of the payment of planning boards.
the planning board's resolution had 22 specific conditions.
Right.
And they also have triggers as to when those conditions need to be satisfied.
Right.
The resolution that was prepared for you, I believe the applicant prepared it.
Yes.
That actually ties back to the plan. It references those conditions by reference, or it relates to those by reference. So
As does the ZBA's resolution. So they're all, rather than listing them all together, because they were going second after the ZBA, it just tied to that.
So what I would recommend, your resolution is very brief, if you will, there's not a whole lot of conditions in there. If there's something you want to add, give me a minute to see if that condition's already been addressed by the planning board. And then if it has, then you don't need to address it. So for example, Doug, I know you had some concerns about PFAS.
Right.
The planning board has a condition that no materials can have PFAS, and they have to demonstrate that to the building inspector and part of the building construction. So it would be redundant if you were to include a similar condition. So.
And I know that one of the neighbors appeared one time and was concerned about the reflection. And I don't know if that was one of the conditions that had to be met.
It's not a condition, but it was satisfied, it was not a condition, but it was satisfied prior to issuance of the approval.
Because I understand that, he's your attorney. Are we in any type of litigation? Is there any discussion of litigation from this particular owner? We were put on notice. So where are we on that?
I will let you, the supervisor or Lori know, but the only item I can add is that I believe that resident has sold that property and conveyed it to another party altogether.
So he doesn't live there anymore?
Yes,
My,
it is sold, and he drafted a letter to me. I forwarded it to Kelly. Kelly responded to him 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think he was
before
CC'd on.
Christmas.
Yeah, and nothing has come of it, but we've responded to him.
Does the new owner, is he aware or anything like that? Are there issues that we may have with this new owner?
I don't know. I've had no contact.
Dylan's engineering son bought it. I would imagine he's on top of it. I mean, he is an engineering firm. He's familiar with what's going on in the county. So Mark Dylan's his son bought it. I met him. He didn't bring any questions up when he came in.
Just want to make sure that there's an litigation that we don't know about, give the approval and all of a sudden it's, hold on. And we put on notice because we were put on notice with these letters.
That was the same, I remember the fellow when he came in.
Yeah,
Yeah, fine.
so let me ask you, again, we were put on notice of property. Has that been rescinded? Does it have to be rescinded?
It doesn't have to be rescinded, we get threats of litigation all the time, there's no active litigation, there's nothing.
But did we actually get did they actually threaten litigation? I
Well,
thought they were
no.
just asking for clarification and
Be fair,
response.
be fair, it was a law firm that wrote a letter, so I
Right.
guess that
Right.
puts everybody, their ears perked up, but there was no.
Yeah.
There's nothing that would. I would put on.
And in fact, the last letter, when Kelly wrote the letter to his law firm, he objected to her ever speaking to the law firm and wanted the letter addressed to him and not to his law firm. So I think he stepped back from his law firm.
I think there's an extra layer of protection with a new buyer coming in, knowing that this project is as far along as it is to, I think, to meet the litigation position that you're even one. So.
I just want
Yeah,
to make
that's
sure
fair.
that we're not exposed to any type of litigation that we know about. That was my question. So that's-
Yeah, that we've not been served with anything that would indicate we're.
Okay, good.
So Sean, then, you do not know of any impediments then?
For this board to act, Kelly, as you recall, you have special permit
Right.
approval in this.
Yeah.
Special permit approval is a little bit different than site plan approval.
Right.
There's some findings in there, and your findings are different than planning board's findings. But no, there's no impediment for you to act tonight if you'd like to.
And on page 6, we talked about internal lot lines, setbacks. Does anyone know what is the total amount of feet from the end of the property to the first house? How many feet would that be? If these streets are internal, right, 38 feet, 18, that's all internal. So.
That was the only, those are the, speaking to the variances, those are the only variance requests. Oh, sorry.
Oh, so I would imagine if they didn't ask for a variance, they're meeting whatever the criteria
Right,
is
they're-
for setback.
That's absolutely, at least from the ZBA side, I know that.
Yeah, the setback requirements 100 feet.
And they were supposed to have buffers there.
Yes, they proposed landscaping buffers.
At least 100 feet. At least 100 feet. Correct.
That's why it's not listed. because it's in
Would you like to see
compliance.
it? I mean, we'll go through it. Okay, yeah, we can see it.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, you didn't see it.
Yes,
Phil, or,
Okay.
Sean, you were talking about PFOAs and PFOS. That they're not included in, they don't have that material in the.
So what happened in response to that, the applicant submitted something that says that they provided additional information, so that they don't use materials with that.
Okay.
As an extra layer of protection, the planning board included a condition. If it was ever determined that a component of theirs had that inadvertently,
Right.
then they would be required to remove it.
Right. Good. Okay.
Or are we looking for other questions?
I would have heard papers moving, so I was waiting.
Yeah, sure, yeah, I have one other
Yeah.
question.
George, can you go into the microphone area?
Okay, the other question I had was, we have a pilot agreement with the other solar facilities. And I would imagine the pilot agreement, that it's gonna be with this particular project, it's gonna be similar. So who's working on that? And do you have any information as far as the revenue that will come to the town from this project?
So I haven't gotten the revenue numbers yet, but I have reached out to the council. I just sent an email earlier today on all the sites, just to check in, to get a pilot. So,
In the past, George, in the past, that was put together by the county,
Right now,
John McCary. And he has,
Paul Weiler put it together.
pardon?
Well, Paul Weiler put it together and got it to us.
Well, but the other thing is he met with school in the town and the county and explained everything to us. And your company would be there as well and say, here's what it's all about.
Everybody would weigh in.
Yeah.
Supervisor, if I could interject.
Yeah.
You bring up one item that I actually thought you may want to consider tonight as a resolution condition. And that's whether you want to put a condition in here for the pilot to be in place perhaps before the plan is signed. Before they have finalized their site plan and the chairman of the planning board signs that site plan, the pilot would have to be in place.
What I would like to see is, the county, whatever, develops the pilot, and then it's similar in dollars to the other facilities that we have, not that it's less.
I'm not discussing the value of the pilot, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, do you want to set a trigger in your resolution that that pilot must be in place prior to, it could be prior to anything really, but I would suggest prior to the signing of the site.
Signing upon that. I think that's good.
That's right then.
Yes, I know it has.
So are you working on this?
I'm working on it with Al.
Okay. So I think Paul Weiler would get it, right?
Yes, we're talking about the resolution, or we're talking about the pilot.
The pilot.
Yeah,
Okay. And no,
no, both,
yeah.
I could answer that.
I have one question too about the removal of the showing 20 years or whatever, if anyway, they go out of business or something, put it back to farmland. The cost of doing that with a cash bond.
Correct.
Here I just see all bonds talked about and paid. Yeah, so. But no.
We haven't gotten that far yet.
Sorry, I was kind of lost in the cross discussion.
Well, I'm looking here, it says on page 9. All fees regarding this application must be paid in full, including all application fees and other fees required by town code. And the fees, including all engineering, plans, all bonds or other securities required by this resolution shall be submitted in a timely manner as required by town code.
Yes, so this is a general condition, and this pretty much just says they just have to submit these bonds as required by the code. What we have typically done, the way we process, for the applicant to have a complete application, they need to submit a estimate of what their decommissioning bond is going to be. Right. That's initial when they submit their application to the planning board and to you. Over the course of your review, over the course of the planning board's review, the plan changes and that estimate changes. Rather than have the applicant, every time they make a modification, adjust their bond or calculation. What I've typically done, and I think it's worked well, is we wait to the end. Now, when this plan is set and finalized, at that point, we finalize the estimate. I write a letter to this board, and then I say, I believe this should be the amount, and then at that point, the applicant's gonna have to post that cash bond.
Yes.
It doesn't say anything about cash.
It's all, yeah, see, this is the only thing we accept, they're aware of that.
Yeah, so,
Okay, because we did have, we went through a recent issue with something that was part of the bond and cash. And I'm not sure if we should specifically spell it out.
there is,
Bonds are in cash.
there
Not
is
only for you, I'm talking about for everyone.
yeah,
Make sure they understand.
You see one on the other project we invest? Yeah.
yeah.
So they're aware of it, we received the cash bond on the other project.
Yeah, and we just posted that for the Plasky site, and actually in the site plan resolution, there is a lengthy condition about the bonds that spans like a page and a quarter.
Right.
That does specifically lay it out, which is basically just the restate what's proposed. So, and that's being incorporated by reference in your special permit resolution, so it is fully covered.
Bonds are in there. but-
Yeah, it said bond in the general, but the specific sites going back to the site plan conditions, which says cash. So,
Let's say
yeah.
cash, okay. Yeah.
But, yeah, I
Because
understand.
there was an
everything.
issue,
Yep.
and I just want to make sure there's clarification on something already. Not thinking something else wouldn't be fair to you. Anything else? I'm good. One other question, at one point I didn't. Part, but there was an issue with the trees that they were going to plant.
There were trees.
12 to 1,300 trees, and at one point they were talking about putting in these little roots or whatever, at one point, so did we get that yourself?
I'll let the applicant describe it.
We're answering yes, it was totally been taken care of, they're not container trees, they're not bare root. They're, well, they all have the bell, you know, 8 feet, some of them are 10 feet.
Okay.
George, anything else?
It's a minor point, but the, on page 6 again, the Orange County planning. Local determination, the date should be.
If I could, that was one of the items I wanted to discuss with you, but I was waiting to the end. So actually, that paragraph is inaccurate. This was referred to the county on December 14th, 2021. We received no comments back from them. 30 days have elapsed, so now you can take action without that determination. So we're gonna, if it's okay with you, we're already in the applicant to change that language, so it's accurate.
You good? You good? All right.
I got, Mr. Advisor, I got a couple other minor ones I just want to point out. Under identification of plans, it talks about the planning board decision dated December 15th. It's actually a conditional approval, not a decision, and it's December 20th. That mistake occurs a couple times in here, so we'll fix those. We talked about GML, we talked about the pilot. And the last thing I have for you is just process in terms of how we're going to finalize this. The applicant prepared it. What I recommend is the applicant submits to Rory a red line, what changes we discussed tonight. He can check it one final time, make sure everything's in accordance with your understanding. And then it will be able to be signed by you.
Sign it. Right. That's it. Good. Right. So can I get a motion to approve the special permit for New Leaf Energy, aka Owens Road?
The modification.
Condition.
With the modification. I. Second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Very good, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. You gonna drive back, you ready?
Yes,
You gotta start just zooming in, that's
I'm
all.
gonna be here for the next 8 weeks.
Hour and a half, 2 hours.
Last time I stayed over.
Poor guy travels an hour and a half.
Trying to do the room for.
Yeah, but I thought I fixed.
Right, okay, all right.
You burned
Actually don't know where to go.
Good to see you next week.
You're alone.
Thank
You're
you.
alone, she said. I'm always getting this thing done. All right, next on the agenda, review and discuss a request for an easement and license agreement from MHFPC. Sean's gonna make a presentation, you can on the call.
So this is well timed tonight because you heard from Amy tonight. So remember when Amy was getting towards the end of their approval, they needed access off of 17M. The state actually conveyed to the town an approximate 8-acre parcel. So you could actually have a road because the state couldn't convey that to a private entity. So now that 8-acre parcel, that portion is known as River Road and it's town road, although I believe Amy's actually does the maintenance on that road. It only serves the facility. Although there is a spur that's gonna go to Mid-Hudson site. Mid-Hudson site, as you know, is redesigning their facility. They're gonna have an adjacent new facility. They have a 50% design mark right now. This past summer, the DEC has allowed them to make a connection to the city of Middletown for water and sewer service. The only problem is that the site, as it needs to drain to the low point on their site doesn't really coincide with where they want to have a wastewater pump station. So they've approached you to see if you would be interested in providing them with a 7,000 square foot easement on the Walkill River side of what you now know as River Road. And so the easement, if everybody has what I had sent last week, there's two figures. I'd like to start with the figure that's in color that shows the facility. So along the bottom of the page is Route 17M, River Road goes off, if you will, north easterly direction. And then you can see on the left-hand side, the outline the existing campus. What's in color is what they propose to do. You can see they're very tight between the existing facility and River Road. In the general area where their spur comes off, which we discussed tonight, that's where they'd like to put a small easement with a wastewater pump station and a walk for the water meter. So outlined in this figure in red dash lines to the side of your parcel.
Now, where do they hook into how does it traverse to the city of Middletown?
Well, that's what they're working on right now, and this is a threshold decision for them. So if you say we're not interested, they have to figure out some
Some
other.
other way to do it.
Yes, yeah, they just conceptually are gonna go down 17 now. So. Yes. Now, if you're looking for a little bit more detail, they did share with us this second figure, which is primarily in black, white, and red. The red are my notes. And I'd outlined in pink where they'd like that facility, and just for reference, on the left-hand side, you can see the spur driveway that Amy's Kitchen installed for the site.
You see any downside to this solution?
No downside in terms of, as long as they're willing to indemnify you, it is a wastewater pump station, there, it will be your property, actions can happen, things of that nature, things that you'd like to work out sure with council. But, you know, I think you probably intend to be neighborly to the state, you have this parcel because the state was willing to be neighborly to you to facilitate the infrastructure.
Right. Is this facility above ground?
No, you will see manhole covers above ground and valve covers, but everything that you see is actually gonna be underground.
They'll maintain, so they maintain.
They will maintain everything, yes. I did speak to them about their existing facilities. As you may know, they have an existing wastewater treatment plant. They had told me today in an email that the capital cost to upgrade that facility and maintain it is much more expensive than it would be for them to send out wastewater to Middletown. They are also going to decommission the 2 on-site supply wells if this goes forward as they intend.
So, what is the structure that's like the first picture? You know, that you talked about, it's a structure that's in blue, quite a ways off. It's almost to the top of the page.
Yes.
What is that?
So that black line represents conceptually their water main, and that blue square represents a parcel, and the 2 blue circles represent their existing water storage tanks. So the city of Middletown connection will go after it goes to a meter to their existing water tanks to remain. Correct, yeah, they use their existing internal site pumps.
How big are those water and sewer in the city of Middletown?
Yes.
And then I think all along up with Phil's question is this is an 8-acre parcel. It appears that it part of it sits right on 17M. Does it have value? It's value to the town.
Well, it's town road, so I had a brief discussion with the supervisor whether this could just be conveyed back to the city. I don't think town highway law allows you to do that. You have a town road, once the state's looking to take over that road, which I'm pretty certain they're not. If you're interested in carving out this, so you just maintain a right-of-way swap like you do typically, what we could discuss with them is whether they're willing to process a subdivision to subdivide this out from the road parcel, and then you could convey this portion back to them. The only drawback is when the road went in, there's a number of pipes for stormwater drainage that go to the river. So you would need easements around all those pipes. So it would be either give it back.
Just give an easement. Just give an easement. Oh, absolutely. But are we ever going to be responsible for that? Something goes awry?
No, I think anything that you come to an agreement, you're gonna want to be indemnified, you're gonna want to make it very clear that this is all on their shoulder. there's ever an accident there, somebody ever gets injured there, there's ever a medical slow or process upset, you are not maintaining this, you are not. That's my understanding of this council advisory otherwise. Yeah. Okay. So it's what they need to do, right?
Yes,
I mean, it's,
yeah. I agree, we're getting.
So, not too many years ago, they closed this whole place down.
That's correct.
And now there's going to be a new facility. You may notice or not sure. Are they gonna close down the old facility, and just use the new facility, or do they use both?
My understanding is they're gonna use portions of both, or maybe individual components that get removed. I don't think they've figured that out completely yet. Again, it's just a process. I'm sorry, this is just a concept plan.
Yeah.
But I believe remnants of what's there now will remain and be incorporated into the ultimate campus.
And are they gonna start building this like in the next year or two?
I believe can I give you a schedule?
No.
Okay. What they conveyed to us at a brief telephone call was they had indicated was they'd like to finish design and bidding this year, I believe. But I think construction should be in 2024. So, but this is a big item for them, right? Because if you're not willing to grant the easement, then they have to go back to the drawing board and figure out where else that they would have.
Still the easement. And I think as far as the building is going, they're building a new building, especially if you have more remediation and assessment more costly than building a new building. Need a motion for this?
I don't think we need a resolution this evening. What I think it is if I get a thumbs up from everybody, I think the next step is for Rory to reach out to their attorney and then to figure out how to process.
Thumbs up.
All right.
All right.
You got a couple of thumbs.
Yeah.
They subdivide that property? Or they go for it? They never subdivide?
I believe they would be able to if they wanted
They
to.
have access?
I haven't looked at it in that detail. I think the last time, and Doug, I was telling Rory today, I think you and I talked about this many years ago. You were concerned if this went away as they were discussing how it's going to be zoned and sure. And obviously that didn't change. But that was the last time I looked at it from any zoning perspective.
Thanks, Sean.
All right.
Thank
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Sean.
That's it.
All right, next on the agenda is a motion to approve the hiring of Spencer Sutherland as a part-time police officer at $28.10 an hour. Pending approval from civil service. His resume has been attached. Pretty strong resume, local kid, comes out of Chester. And the chief is anxious to get anybody he can, part-time, especially a young person. So moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Beautiful. Okay. Let's review and approve the December 19, 2022 minutes. The issues?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Review and approve January 3rd, 2023 minutes. So moved. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Finance, and discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay accounts payable check run for January 12th, 2023 in the amount of $987,903.30. Have a motion? Second? George, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay workers' comp claims in the amount of $1,910.23. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discuss and approve a budget transfer from the assessors office submitted by Christine Cavallari. Attached. Any questions on it? She moving small amounts? Nope. Have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Information at the end was added. Christine Cavallari conducted an accounts payable audit for January 12th, 2023. Any questions about it? Okay, privilege of the floor. Questions? Bob?
Yeah, Joe, can you give me a little help on what happened the other night? I'm not interested in the substance of the matter, I'm just interested in the process. From what I got, ARC approached the board, you approved them to go and do the research and.
Correct. It would be a JRC decision. It's their, they maintain the property for us. They run the park and rec. So we gave it back to them. We all approved moving forward with for the purposes of getting the bids and everything and looking at it and then moving forward with it.
So, it's my understanding, they don't have to bring it back.
That's correct.
Did you approve an amount for this?
No. It's the only thing they would come back to us for.
So,
If they need a contribution from the town to come out of the parkland fees, they'd come back to us and we'd have to agree to give them what they may need to get it done. So that's the only way the project would move forward or stop is with them coming back to us for finance purposes.
so they don't know how much they're gonna. The participants, the groups that want this, they don't know how much they're gonna raise. If they don't know how much they're gonna raise,
No, correct.
and they have a final price, when they put this in. I was unsure about what they're going to have in public. Meeting. So, one section, or both sections, or the general idea.
I believe, I'm more familiar with it, but I believe what they're doing is putting together a package for both fields to be lit up, sharing poles, trying to cut the cost down for them and the town, and light up both of those fields with new LED lighting, low glare LED lighting. That's where we are right now. I think somebody requested at the meeting the other night, asked them to go back to Musco and get a final price. I think it was, Kate Schmidt had asked for it. So that's where we are right now. This is not something that, Bob, is gonna happen overnight.
Oh, and see, I thought once they had the public hearing, that was it, that they were gonna make a decision on that.
Well, they have to go back and they have to get pricing. They have to find out what they're gonna contribute. They have to come back to the town and the village. For support, if they're looking for financial support, we have to approve that.
That's what I mean, that's why I'm confused about having a public hearing, and you don't know what it's gonna cost, well, I gotta tell the residents.
Well, I don't know if the public really has to weigh in on what the cost is if they're raising most of the money. I think the public has to weigh in whether they want the lights or they don't want the lights. If there's some genuine concern as to what the lights are gonna do to a resident that may live on Brookside, if they can glare and everything else, I think those questions have to be asked. I mean, I think those are questions that you asked and legitimately have to be answered.
I don't think that.
No, no, absolutely.
But, yeah, I'm still confused as to how they make a decision with incomplete information.
Well, from the public's perspective, I think what has to happen is the public has to agree that they don't have concerns on this, or maybe some people do have concerns on this. And where do they weigh in, with the public, against the public? There are 20 people that come out for it, one person doesn't come out for it. So they have to justify to the Park and Rec Board that this is something that the Park and Rec Board wants to approve. That's it. I mean, that doesn't mean it's going to be built. They still have to fund it.
No, I understand that, but to me, if I was gonna go there and be for it or against it, I would wanna know how much it's gonna cost to do it, not just the.
Well, I mean, look at it from this perspective. If they put this entire package together, we work backwards. I think you want to work backwards. So hear me out and then tell me if I'm going in the right direction. If they put this whole package together, they spent hours upon hours upon hours raising the money. They come back to us and say, the total bill package is $510,000 to build this together. We raised $400,000. We're ready to go. Will the town and the village contribute $110,000? We say yes. Then they have a public hearing and they find out that the public is not in favor of it and it gets turned down, and all that was a big giant waste of time. And they're sitting on oodles of money that they don't know what to do with anymore. So I think the proper process is to get the approval from the residents that they're okay with this, or they're not okay with this. At least hear them out and let's mitigate what some of the concerns may be, glare and so on and so forth. Then go raise the money. Then come back to us, and if they may come back to us and say we need $400,000, we say have a nice day. $400,000 on lights is not something that we want to put together. Better spent on something else. But they may come back and say we need $100,000, and the board may look at this and say, okay, from our perspective, you've gone out and raised $400,000. Kudos to you. We're gonna distribute $100,000 from parkland fees to you for the kids to extend their season. I mean, I think what they're trying to do is just to get Get kids off the street and get them out there playing more. You know, we have an epidemic around here, you know, some people may not want to believe it, but if you listen to the police and listen to, you know, the news, you'll see that we have an epidemic around here. So we want to keep these kids away from those bad things. I think that's the way you do it. Give them as much time as you can at that park, at any park that we have.
And I want to ask you about that. In the town code, it says that the joint rent is, the proportionate share is 50%. Town and village. Do we still go by that? Is that still?
I mean, in theory, you have to, but I think I think from my perspective, I haven't addressed it with this board, but from my perspective, I think that is, you know, that scenario just doesn't play anymore, because there's 3 times the amount of people that live in the town to 1/3, you know, 1/4 of the people that live in the village. And I don't think it's a fair distribution. Plus, all of the growth that's going on is in the town. So the village doesn't have any parkland fees. So I think it would be remiss for us as residents, as a board, as parents and grandparents, to see our kids not get what they want because we're gonna sit on, you know, $300,000 or $400,000 because the village doesn't have $25,000 to contribute. The overall goal is to benefit your grandchildren, my grandchildren, your kids, my kids, and not have the money sit in the bank.
I agree, but I also think that the boards should obey the laws. If you don't like the law.
Well, I don't think it's a law, it's an intermunicipal agreement that we have. I think the agreement has to be adjusted. I do agree to that. You know, I think we have to look at that.
The copy I got says bylaws, that's part of the code of the town of village. So if you want to change the law, that's fine with me. But I think you should get the citizens' approval and not just say it doesn't make any sense for us. Because.
And I agree.
Just one more thing. That was written, I think it said 1968. So you can imagine what the distribution of the population was in 1968. I'll bet you it was just opposite.
It was.
And they had a 50%. So the people in the town.
Yeah.
Might have been 1986.
No, 68 was the
The
original.
original one, and then
And then we updated it in 86.
the Parkland and the Craigville one.
See, it did
not go in
88?
1968.
No. The update comes about when Craigville goes in. There's an update.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That's.
So, but I do agree, and I think there's a need for us to approve, the public has to approve the project. Maybe in the interim, we need to start looking at that and working with the village to readjust that, so we're in the 20th century.
Well, I don't think you can speak up to the good intentions of the village government. I mean, they spend their money on, policemen, sanitation, water. Now, that's their choice. So I just don't think that the town can pay 90% because they have other things.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't think we're gonna pay 90%.
Well, I just.
Yeah.
But.
But I think we do have to look at the overall calculation as to what we have to contribute as a town, knowing that intermunicipal agreement and local law was adopted in 1968 when it was reversed and there were more people in the village than there were in the town. Now there's 3 times the amount of people, there's 5 times the amount of development relative to housing and even relative to construction. And we're looking at that too. I mean, I know we have nothing in the law like other counties have for a contribution of community service funds for industry. But we're looking at it a different way. We're going to the industry and I'm going to the industry people and looking at them and saying, okay, you want to be a good neighbor, you want things from us, well, build us a park, do something for our kids, and believe it or not, you'd be shocked at the amount of people that are saying, let's talk. We've had multiple meetings on it.
I don't think you should do what the board should be involved in industries that come in before they get.
No, this is after they're approved. I don't reach out to them until after they're approved. It's not a quid pro quo. I don't go to you and say, Bob, you want to come and build here? No problem, build me a park. No,
That was not my intent.
I understand. I wanted to be clear on it.
Well, I do too, and it wasn't inferred in my question or.
No, and I'm adding clarity to the fact that I don't approach anybody relative to asking for, you know, asking for them to do something for, you know, the kids of Goshen.
As a philosophy, I'm not in favor of governments doing a partnership with private industry and anything.
Well, it's not a partnership. I'm just,
Wait, let's get this part, let's do this, that, and the other. That's.
no, I've never ever once said to anybody that I've spoken to, and believe me, I mean, he sits with me on, I make sure that I have legal advice, because I tend to sometimes go on, so I don't catch myself, and he kicks me in the leg. So I have never ever suggested to anybody, I swear, I've never suggested to anybody that has sat down with me.
You see, I'm not making this, it's not personal, and maybe I'm precise.
I know you're not making it personal. I'm just reiterating for public record that, you know, when we go out and we look for contributions after the fact, after they have already been approved, they have a shovel in the ground already. Maybe I reach out to them and say, can you help us a little bit on, you know, we're building this, can you help us a little bit on it, you know, and everybody's been, not everybody, but a good portion of people have been receptive.
Well, to me, I think you should address that part of the 50% proportion.
Sure, go ahead.
Just, I do agree, I think this whole agreement has to be looked at, because in addition to the 50%, we're supposed to change the books back and forth every 5 years. We don't do that, so there are a number of things. Even though if we're putting 70%, they're still getting 50% of the decisions. So it could be somewhat like the tail starting to wag the dog. In addition to that, a lot of the people that are contributing right now are on the other side of Route 17. They don't have a facility. So, and the village board will have a definite say on what happens on the other side of 17.
Right.
So, I mean, we need to really look at this agreement.
No, absolutely.
Agreement, we should probably pull it out. And there are a number of issues.
It's on the board.
Yeah, I mean, it
It's
was
on
one
the
of the
board to
first
look
things,
at it.
one of the first things.
Yeah.
So,
It just got-
It's on the board to address the intermunicipal agreement and the local law relative to funding joint park and rec. And adding to Phil, we have just taken back over the books for park and rec. They are now with the town for the next 5 years.
It's a lot that needs to be looked at. It's
Well,
not. Yeah.
I could, for a number of years, you know, I didn't know it was, I thought it was. And I didn't understand how you were, I think, however the split is, when you budget line comes in, and so we're giving this much and we're.
Up until recently, we did go 50-50.
Right.
There's also
That changed not too many years ago.
specific components to each part of who maintains and who handles certain things. So it's there as well, not just.
So for the purposes of the new pavilion we put up, we paid 100% of that, but the village is committed to building the 2 bathrooms at Erie Park. So they have the funding, they're working through it right now. They have to work with the school district because they own the property, and they're doing that. They're trying to find a way for the school to either deed or lot line change on that property. It's kind of complicated because anything that's owned by the school has to be approved by the state. So, but Scott is looking at that, and they do have the funds. I understand they have the funds to build those 2 bathrooms to complement what we did at the pavilion. Anything else?
No,
Good.
that just, like I said, I was.
Yeah.
confused as to-
Heritage.
No, I'm sorry.
You good?
Get out on Thursday night.
All right, with that being said, can I have a motion to close the meeting of January 12th?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?